Cover copy of arrived in New York City 12 years ago from London. He knew next to nothing about the city. I was told that I had to read one book, he said, and the next day a gift, the best possible introduction to understanding New York, The Power Broker, appeared on his desk. And then, as if a miracle, Clive was invited to a dinner party where he ended up sitting next to Bob, and soon Clive, Bob, and Ina became friends, and Clive told me that this is a friendship that he cherishes. In fact, if you look at the brochure of the 2017-18 Carnegie Hall season, you will see a picture of Bob illustrating the announcement of a new series on the 60s and the years that changed America, inspired by Pulitzer Prize-winning author and journalist Robert A. Caro. Bob once mentioned to me that the prize that's meant the most to him is the Francis Parkman Prize, which is awarded by the Society of American Historians for a book that best exemplifies the union of the historian and the artist, which is why Bob and I agree that the Robert Caro Prize would be awarded to a research paper that blends literary excellence in the writing of history. Happily, the creation of the Robert Caro Prize has increased the number of semester and full-year research essays. Students report how much they enjoy working on their papers. They feel a sense of ownership about their research topics. Over the last 6 years, award-winning research papers have, for example, given us insight into how the New York Times covered the Holocaust, taught us about the devastating impact of the 1918 influenza epidemic, and the 2005 prize-winning student, Lindsay Zelson, is back here today with us. And last year's winner, Sarah Zhang, explored the mysteries of the Cuban Missile Crisis. She enjoyed her time here so much that this year she wrote another prize-winning paper, this one on Sino-American relations in the 1970s. I noted last year that when the prize was first established, I couldn't imagine how much it would mean to Bob. I knew that it would mean the world to students and to the history department, but I couldn't imagine that an historian who has received every possible accolade would value our small token of appreciation. But working closely with Bob has made me realize how much this award means not only to the winners and to us, but to him. It also became abundantly clear last year when the Paris Review published an interview with Bob, and on the very first page he said that the Robert Caro Prize is the nicest thing that's happened to him. I know that we're grateful that Bob is joining us this afternoon, and as Tom noted earlier, I now have the pleasure of teaching in the Robert A. Caro Class of '53 history classroom. Dr. Kelly, in an email to me, said, "We're naming the classroom not only because of Bob's scholarly work, but also, more importantly, for the work he continues to do with today's HM students. It will be an honor for my colleagues and for me to teach there." So now, let me welcome Bob, but I'd also like to welcome one of my history colleagues, David Berenson, who's the faculty advisor to the school newspaper, The Record, for a special presentation. So, Bob, please, and David.
So as the current advisor of the paper, there's actually 4 of us in the history department who have served as advisors to the paper. We came across a copy of the Record in which you were named the 1952-1953 Record editor-in-chief. And I'd just like to read briefly from the article about it, saying, where is it? Here we go. Robert A. Caro, 53, has been chosen editor-in-chief of the Record, Horace Mann's weekly newspaper, for the 1952-1953 school year. It was announced in Assembly last Monday morning. A Horace Manner since the first form, Caro was named to the top post in the Record because of the outstanding work he has done on this and other school publications during his years at school. One of the finest English students and writers in his class, Bob has had several stories printed in the manuscript and the now defunct Quarterly. In addition, he is a member of the Mannequin and Manuscript boards. And then on the back, there's the editorial board went on to say, "It is not without a great deal of thought that the Record staff selected the boys who will edit the school newspaper next year. In naming Robert Caro editor-in-chief of the Record for the 1952-53 year, we have selected a boy who is an outstanding journalist and is admirably equipped to handle the job. We are confident that Bob, along with his associate editor Robert Ackerman, a boy who possesses a fine journalist imagination, will produce a high-quality paper next year." So, this is from the department. Welcome. And I also found I thought you'd appreciate two of your, from your editorial board, two papers. One is from September 29, 1952, which you edited. Wait, hold on, it's kind of neat. It has a cartoon by Ed Koren in it, one of your classmates, right? The New Yorker cartoonist at the bottom. And there's a debate over who's the best man, Stevenson, Hallahan, or Eisenhower, right? And the other one, which you can please have, says that Adlai Stevenson is the Horace Mann choice for president, the student poll reveals. So these are two of your works as editor-in-chief. I thought you'd appreciate this.
Thank you.
So anyway, thank you. Thank you for the history department.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks. Well, that makes the day really nice. The picture of the three editors under that headline included Jerry Jonas, who was the editor of the yearbook, and it's so nice to me to have some of my classmates here today. I wanted to take a minute. This is a really happy day for me. Every so often I got an award or two, and Ina would say to me, "Why don't you act happy?" And I would say, "Well, I'll act happy if you want me to," but it always feels like it's happening to someone else, so I'm never really excited about it. But giving this award really does make me happy, and I'm going to take a minute or two to tell you why. When Horace Mann first approached me 6 years ago and said they would like to name an award in my honor, I said that would really be great if they gave the award for something that I believed in. Barry asked me what I really wanted, and I said, well, you know, all my life I've been trying to make people understand, trying to make other writers understand, that the quality of the writing, the quality of the prose, is just as important in nonfiction as it is in fiction. You know, you read so many history books, and it seems like the only thing that mattered to them, to the writer was to get all the facts in. Is one fact after another. There doesn't seem to be any understanding that things that matter in fiction, sense of place, the rhythm of the words, the arrangement of the paragraphs, that those things really matter in nonfiction too, because they're part of a story, and history is a story. And if you want people to understand the story, you have to give them the setting. You have to show them what the room is like. I'll take 1 minute here just to give you an example of what I'm talking to you about. Also, from the setting, if you do the setting right, if you pick it right, you can let the reader understand something about the character in his reaction to that setting without having to give him a lecture and stop the reader cold in his tracks. For example, Lyndon Johnson comes to Washington as the secretary to a congressman. He's 22 years old. He's very poor. He can only carry a cardboard suitcase, and he doesn't have a winter overcoat. And he's going to work, and I happened to find a woman who worked in the office with him, a woman then elderly, but had worked with him when she was in her 20s, named Estelle Harmon. Now here was the scene that and she told me about this scene she would see every morning. The Capitol building is here, the Library of Congress is here. Lyndon Johnson lives in a little hotel down at the bottom of Capitol Hill, near Union Station. Estelle lives in a boarding house over here. So she's walking to the Capitol early. They're both from Texas, so they get up very early, both from farms. So they get up very early in the morning, and she's walking toward the Capitol in this direction. And she would always see the same thing. Lyndon Johnson would come up the hill from the little hotel. He'd always be walking. And then suddenly, when he was in front of the Capitol, he would break into a run and run the length of the Capitol to the House office building, which is on the other side. So she said, first I thought it was because it was winter, and he didn't have a top coat, and he was cold that he was running. But then spring came, and it was warm, and he still ran. And I suddenly thought, well, I'm trying to show something about things about Lyndon Johnson. I didn't quite know what at the time. But was there a reason that he was running in front of the Capitol every morning? So I would go and sit there trying to find a reason, time after time, day after day. And I never saw anything in particular, except there's this long white front of the Capitol, but it just seemed like a long white front of the Capitol. But then something occurred to me. I had never gone to sit there and look at it at the same time that Lyndon Johnson passed, which was early in the morning, 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So I decided to do that. And all of a sudden, there was something really different. Because the sun comes up. This is the east front, facing the east, part of the Capitol that faces the east front. The sun comes up in the east. So the sun is at its very strongest. And as it came up, it illuminated this whole long white front of the Capitol with its friezes and the heroic figures in them and the row and after row of columns. It illuminated it as if it was a bright, stage set. And you suddenly said, yes, Lyndon Johnson is coming from a land where the buildings are mostly what they call dog runs, two-room log cabins. All of a sudden, he's in front of this thing which is so magnificent in this blazing light, the white marble lit up, that it touched him. He might not even have thought about it, but it touched in him and showed him what he could achieve if he succeeded in this setting. So I wrote it that way. And I always felt I didn't have to tell people so much about Lyndon Johnson's ambition, that they could see it in this one scene. That's something that I've believed in, that I've always believed in. So the idea that Horace Mann would establish an award that would help people, that would in some way inculcate in some students an understanding of this is the kind of thing that you ought to try to be doing, that you ought to show the setting of a room that a scene occurs in, that a treaty is signed and a debating in. That's really important. So this is really, every year, a really terrific day for me. So the second reason that this day is really special for me is because of the paper that I'm giving the award to. As it happens, as Barry said, it's the first time the award has been given to the same person 2 years in a row. Last year's paper, her paper last year was really good. Then this summer I started getting a couple of emails from Sarah. She said her paper is on Sino-American relations since the Nixon era, really, to almost to the present day. She said, I'm over in Beijing interviewing diplomats because that's what Robert Caro would do. Well, that sort of made me cry. Then she said, as I recall, Sarah, that one man wouldn't give you interviews, but you weren't stopping asking him, because that's what Robert Caro would do. That was really, I must say, extremely touching to me. But it was also something that not many human beings would do, to have that perseverance to go over there and get those interviews. It really made me think a lot of you. But of course, the paper also has to be well written. It's for literary excellence in the writing of history. So when Barry said that the paper was really well written, I had to wait and see, was it well written? And it is. It's a remarkable piece of work. It's a very complicated story, and she tells a lot about Nixon changing and opening up relations to China. But although it's complicated work, you never have to wonder what's happening because it's all very clear. And I understand how very hard it is to do something like that. So Sarah, it's a real pleasure to award you the second prize, second year in a row, get the prize for literary excellence in the writing of history. Come on up. That's for you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is for you.
Really nice. Really nice. Great. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I just wanted to start off by saying how honored I am to be here with all of you today. So I remember when I met Mr. Caro last year, I told him that I wanted to study the history of Sino-American relations in the 1970s and that I was going to go visit China to do some research. So the plan that I had back then was really hazy. I knew that I was going to visit Shanghai, visit Beijing, check out a couple of resources at different universities, but that was about it. But what really struck me was Mr. Caro's reaction. He was incredibly encouraging, and he encouraged me to pursue whatever topic I was interested in. So afterward, Mr. Caro inspired me to actually go contact and interview different American and Chinese diplomats and professors. And I can honestly say that my perspective on the topic has been fundamentally changed by all of those interactions that I've had with those witnesses and diplomats. And I also remember Mr. Caro saying that one of the reasons he studies political power is that political power from 40, 50, or 60 years ago still affects all of our lives today. And I always remember that, because I think that really encapsulates one of the reasons why people study history and why history is still so important today. So, and of course, I'd like to thank Mr. Caro, because he's truly an inspiration, and he's really inspired me in all of my time at Horace Mann. And of course, I'd also like to thank my mentor, Mr. Weinstock, because this wouldn't have been possible without him. And I'd also like to thank everyone else at Horace Mann, my teachers, especially my history teachers, Mr. Jacobs, Dr. Bales, of course, Dr. Kelly, and all the other teachers at Horace Mann, and everyone else who's made this event possible. I've probably left out a lot of people, so I hope that's okay. And of course, I'd also like to thank my parents, because they've been here through the whole process with me. They helped me practice for all the interviews that I tried to conduct with different people, and they've supported me throughout everything. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Barry. And thank you to all you who come out to make today such a special and joyful occasion for everyone under the tent and at Horace Mann. Sarah, to you and to your family, we wish you well. We're going to miss you. We hope you come back. We hope you visit often. Mom and Dad, your school's always our school. To the Carols of the extended family, it's a treat to have you here anytime. So we'd love to have you back, whether we're having tea in the room or just enjoying a stroll on campus in the class of 53. We know we can pull the record and see evidence of each and every one of you looming large during your time here. So thank you for honoring us with your presence. Jessica, to the administration, the high school, Dr. Levenstein, thank you for giving us this opportunity. Enjoy the afternoon, everyone.
Book TV is on Twitter and Facebook, and we want to hear from you. Tweet us, twitter.com/booktv, or post a comment on our Facebook page.